our worth is priceless. Our worth is not tied to anything externally. It comes from
Absolutely
the
not.
inside and
Yes.
from the relationship that you choose to have with a
Yes.
higher power. Whatever that person is to you, like that is the person that validates your worth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those are lessons that taking time for people to learn or need people like you and I to have those conversations with them to remind them, like, you should have the audacity. You should be audacious as fuck to get what you need and want. Like, why not? Like, why are you not worthy to have the audacity and create the life you want?
You're listening to the Audacious as Fuck podcast, where we're not just talking about business, we're talking about life. Hola, I'm your host, Marta Ramos, a Dominican-American lifestyle entrepreneur who had the audacity to go from corporate to chief empowered officer of my life and business. And this show is all dedicated to reimagining what more is possible for you so that you can start creating your own path to success. So if you have the audacity to step into your power, your purpose, and really own your CEO vibe, then you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Audacious as Fuck podcast. I am your host, Marta Ramos. And today, before I introduce my lovely guest, Gihan Manzueta, I want to kind of set the stage for what we are going to be discussing because it is a topic that is dear and near in my heart, hers. I'm sure it's going to resonate with my Audacious as Fuck community. We're going to be discussing generational trauma, right? And how that has either helped or hindered us in terms of our own journeys in life, right? Like whether success in your personal life or professionally. And we're also going to be discussing how the importance of community, like how important that is for us to heal our traumas and make sure that we are living our most audacious life. Now, all of us, and this is a fact, have been shaped or influenced by our environment. And what if that environment wasn't optimal or ideal to help you achieve or maximize your potential? So again, whether your work life or, life relationships in general, we're going to be kind of digging a little deep in terms of what some of those generational traumas are, what is generational trauma, and all that good stuff. So today, my guest on the show is Gihan Manzueta, and she is a transformational coach that guides her clients to live on purpose, find inner joy through God, and manifest their most audacious life. So, Gihan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show and to share with your people.
Yes,
I like to call them my party people. Everybody's my party people. So
I love that. And actually, and I forgot to mention, she is my fellow Dominicana, my sister.
Yes,
so
that's right. That's right.
So if you hear us speaking bilingual or Spanish or Spanglish, whatever, just know that, it's
Ya lo sabe.
So listen, Mama, so let's kick this off. So tell me a little bit about your story and what led you to reimagine or redefine this next chapter in your life. Like, what was that come to Jesus moment? So if you could just take us back a little bit and kind of bring us to the present moment.
I believe what in my story has been that there was a time where I tried to follow everything I was told I was supposed to do in life. The dreams that belong to other people. That's what I did. The school, the marriage, the children, the corporate world, and trying to climb that corporate ladder. And what ended up happening is that I started feeling like I was suffocating in my office, in my cubicles. Like I felt like I was suffocating. And I didn't understand what was happening to me because I kind of followed the steps. And what ended up in that space when I had my father ended up getting ill. And then I realized, life is fleeting. So what exactly is it that I need to make myself happy? What is it that I'm lacking? So I went on this, it felt like what some people may call like the beginning of that spiritual journey, that being in that dark space, although you feel like you're happy, but you're really not. And that started that transformation for me. And then I realized, I know I'm not the only one going through this.
Mhm.
And I was like, instead of my journey being a few years of that start and then obviously always progressing, now I'm like, maybe I can create a roadmap for other people so that they don't have to go through tragedy to get there, or have to feel like they're almost literally like going through a death of themselves to feel like, okay, I can come out on the other side. There's other ways of getting there. And it doesn't have to be through struggle or tragedy. Like we can figure this out before. So that's part of my story of where I'm from.
But I can totally resonate with everything you said, especially that part of suffocating. You felt like you were suffocating in your job. Like I remember being in my own corporate career and I was so unhappy, so dissatisfied with the work that I was doing and the people that I got to work with. I literally used to sit there and be like, I can't imagine I have to sit in this fucking meeting checking other people's egos. Like that is not my job.
Yes.
Cause everybody feels like just cause they got a little title and some money that they're better than everyone else. But anyway, that's a different conversation. But I can totally take myself back feeling like I was suffocating, like my world was coming to an end. And I was such in a dark space that I became so depressed. And I've mentioned this before, that I even began to have suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
And I know that usually when people talk about trauma, they attribute it to mental health issues. But a lot of my trauma came from that same thing you shared. Like I did everything I was supposed to do, everything I was conditioned to do. Go to school, get good grades, become a professional, have a career, and, climb the corporate ladder, all these things. But at the end of the day, as much as it was great on paper and from the outside looking in, it seemed fabulous. And I'm not going to lie, I had an amazing career. I got to achieve a lot of my own dreams and desires. But slowly but surely, I became so unhappy with the person I was becoming that I started to question if this was indeed what I was supposed to continue to do, right? Like, one of the generational traumas that I think, and you know what? Let's take a step back. Why don't we first let our audience know what generational trauma is?
Okay. So obviously it's things that we inherited from our ancestors, from our mother, grandmother, and family. Spiritually, it's a conversation that I think lately has become like very common, but it is something that has occurred, and it could be things that we are aware of and things we're not aware of. So if we speak of the things we're aware of when it comes to generational trauma, it could be, for example, aware is once you become aware of it. For example, something your parents went through, obviously being Dominican, coming from an immigrant, like our immigrant story, and what our parents went through, not having access to certain things, living like limited life, like a limited belief in scarcity mindset that comes from our parents. So it's one of those things where we inherit that from them, or them getting beaten as kids. So now we're getting beat as kids. And then we're like, oh, I was okay, so you're okay. And we're like, you were not okay. So that's one way of defining like generational trauma.
Yeah, no. And I was reading this article on Hip Latina by Dr. Lisette Sanchez, where she addresses generational trauma and parentification in the Latinx community.
Yes.
And it's interesting because one of her first cycles that she has observed when it comes to parentification, aka when a child is expected to take on the role of an adult, it often results it's often the result of parents who were also parentified as children. And I remember growing up, and before I can even reach the sink, my mother would put those milk crates, those crates that the gallons of milk used to come in front of the sink. And I learned how to do dishes before I think I could even read.
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And
We definitely had to do that. That's a definite, it was that, a chair, anything to reach the sink. For that and cooking. Yeah.
Girl, by the age of 10, I was already cooking. Like I literally used to come home from school with my younger siblings because I was the oldest of 4 at the time. And my parents both had to work because you spoke about the limited resources and, they didn't make as much money. Like I don't come from a rich family.
Right.
Both of my parents had to work 2 and 3 jobs to in a household. And I remember being 10 years old, and before I can do my homework, I was cooking, making sure my siblings had food, making sure that it was dinner. So by the time my parents came home from work, they had food on the table, and then I was able to do my homework. So I was an adult at like 10 years old.
Right. And then this is the way it translates, because like me as a transformational coach, I speak on things that have to do with manifesting manifesting and creating the life you want. And touching upon what you just said, like at a very young age, we were translating documents. We were at the doctor with them, translating doctor visits. We were translating at parent-teacher conferences for our parents. We're cooking. That seems like the badge of honor. Like, oh, at 10, yo estaba haciendo arroz. I was already, yo sé hacer habichuela. You know what I mean? Like at a very young age, yo sé sazonar. Like I know how to do these things. So we wore these things as badges of honor, but then we didn't realize like, oh, we didn't have a childhood, especially you as an older sibling. Like your job to parent your younger siblings, and then you had to parent your parents as a child and then as an adult, most likely, because then we're responsible for them as an adult as well. So in the community, what we end up learning is that we do that, and then we get in relationships, and then we get irritated when the same thing happens in our relationships, and we don't know why. And it's because we either have to parent our spouses in our relationships, or the opposite. We don't know how to handle when they want to take care of us. So we go through these things. So we kind of have to always like revert back to these things of the generational, like the things that were imposed to us as children, and having to kind of heal from those things and unlearn those things to get us to the next like level in our life or chapters.
And you know what's so interesting that I remember being young and questioning a lot of these things that were that I was conditioned to do, right? So cooking at a young age, cleaning and all of this. And I remember one day, because I think it was the first and only time my mom slapped the Jesus out of me, because she had sent me to iron my father's pants. And I hate ironing. So this day I don't like iron my clothes.
That must be like a shared experience.
And I remember I must have been like 11 or 12 years old. And I remember she sent me to iron my dad's pants. And I was like, why do I have to keep ironing his clothes? Like, you're the one sleeping with him. ¿Pa qué fue eso? The next day was a slap in my face. And my mother's like, oh my God, tú no tienes pelo en la lengua. Like, you have no hair on your tongue. You have no filter. So hence why the name of my show is called Audacious as Fuck, because since from a very young age, I've had the audacity to like question certain things. Like, why did I have to be ironing my father's clothes? Why did I have to learn how to cook from such a young age? And why did I have to clean and do these things? But I will tell you that till this day, like I'm one of those people that my house has to be spotless. And I hate cleaning, but I hate dirt even more. But this is the thing. It's like, it's not just the woman that has that responsibility. Like,
Correct.
Me, when I was younger, when I grow up and I'm in a relationship, like my partner has to also share the responsibilities in the household. Like, this is no mother, me being your mom, taking care of everything.
Correct.
My spouse also has to learn how to cook, clean, do the dishes, do the laundry, because guess what? It's 50-50 in my household.
Yes, as it should be. And I think that's one of those things that traditionally it was ingrained in us to be that way, to not do that, what you're saying. It was ingrained in us we have to cater to our spouses and to our partners. Like, we have to do that. And I remember as a child also, like, we would be eating dinner, and if my brothers didn't have something to drink, I had to get up, or my sister had to get up to get them something. We had to serve them. So like, that's how I was raised. So then, being married, I was like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. And then I was like, wait, this doesn't feel right. Like, and it was one of those things, like you said, like questioning those things. Like I would question things as well, but it was more like, this is what you're supposed to do. This is your job, and it's like, wait, it wasn't my job. It's not my job. Like, we're two people, we're humans, and we're in this together. We're in a partnership. So yeah, it was things like that you have to learn to, and that's just like small parts. And like you said, like cleaning to you is more of a, you learn from it to do that. For me, it translated into, if my house isn't clean, if I'm not doing something, if I'm not being productive, I felt like I didn't have value. So my value was in the production. So I can't sit down, because if I'm sitting down, I'm being lazy. So I'm not, so my value is attached to those being productive, washing the dishes, cleaning this, organizing this, turning this, DIY. So I need to constantly be doing something, when in fact, no, I need to value my rest as well. And I had to learn that for myself, and also obviously for my clients now, explaining to them that it's okay to rest. You're not lazy,
Yeah.
So I know we do that too.
Yeah, no. And I'm so glad you brought up that point, because a lot of times we do attach our value or our worth to external things, when in reality, and I'm here to preach this until the day I die, like our worth is priceless. Our worth is not tied to anything externally. It comes from the inside, and from the relationship that you choose to have with a higher power, God, the universe, like whatever you preach, sis. Like whatever that person is to you, like that is the person that validates your worth. It has nothing to do with whether you did the dishes today,
Correct.
whether your man or partner came home to a warm meal. Like, it has nothing, like your worth and your value has nothing to do with that.
Absolutely. And I think those are lessons that, again, has taken time for people to learn, or need people like you and I to have those conversations with them, to remind them, like, you should have the audacity. You should be audacious as fuck to get what you need and want. Like, why not? Like, why are you not worthy enough to have the audacity and create the life you want? You have to have that. And that's so absolutely necessary to consistently remind yourself and others that you are worthy, in spite of what everything else is going around or what society has told us to be.
And that part of society, like, I remember when I lost my job in corporate, and I was, attached to my associate director title and my 6-figure salary, and, the prestige that comes with the company that I was working with. And I remember when I was let go, like, it was so traumatic for me, because I had become the person that I didn't want to become. Like, I was tying my worth, my value to those external things. So when I lost it, I lost a sense of who I was. And I'm like, I really had to go back and question, like, who am I? So I don't know if you've ever experienced something as traumatic as like losing your job or whatever. Like, how did that make you feel in terms of your worthiness?
That's kind of where I stood, in the sense of when I was feeling being suffocated at work. part of my being suffocated is because I noticed how long it was taking me to climb the corporate ladder and why I wasn't being valued at work. So I was attaching my identity to that and being like, maybe I am not good enough to be VP. Maybe I can't. Like, maybe I don't have it in me. When at home and like people that know me outside of work, and when at that time, like I would always do like, like events, like party stuff for people and like, like things for my children. And I'm like, I feel like I'm good at this. Like, why am I not good enough for work? And I didn't realize, like you had mentioned before, like mental health being something that we focus on when we realize it's like right now there's a trend that's like, oh, I really wasn't depressed. I was at a terrible job. Or I really wasn't depressed. I live here and not in DR. Like things of that nature. Like, it's like, I really thought I wasn't worth something because of the fact that I kept hitting like a ceiling at work and not getting to the level that I wanted to. And it might happen for someone at work, or it might happen to someone at home, like feeling like they're not a good mom or a good partner, because they can't maintain the home, or they can't rally up the kids to do what they want. You know what I mean? So for me, the ceiling what I hit was at work with that. And then what ended up happening is my first transition out of corporate, I went to a smaller company, and that smaller company, I ended up actually leading everyone. And I was like, wait, I can do this. I was capable. And it was like, okay, but now wait, I think I want to work for myself. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things like, okay, I did it. Now I can go. Like, but it was one of those things where it's like, oh, it wasn't that I wasn't worth it. They just couldn't see it. And I needed to see it for myself. I needed to see it myself. Yeah.
I love that. And going back to, how a lot of us, especially women, that need to always feel productive. And I think I was born like as a high achiever. Like I always need to be achieving something, like, and once I complete that goal, moving on to the next, because I think that I was also tying my value to all of the accomplishments that come with, which makes it harder for us to sometimes just like chill the fuck out and just like be lazy for one day. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, as long as you listen, there's days that I just want to sit in front of the TV and have a glass of wine and catch up on my favorite shows and be okay with that. But I remember that it took a lot of work for me to get myself out of that mindset where it was like, girl, si tú no estás limpiando, like if you're not cleaning or doing the dishes, then you are lazy. You're not worthy. Como se dice, I remember that it took a lot for me to shift out of that and be like, no, you are worthy. You've already proven that you can do these things. So the fact that you want to take a day for yourself, it's okay.
Right. And I think that comes in a space of healing from that trauma of feeling like you need to be productive to be valued, and healing to create for yourself and all that. And for you also takes time. The healing part was you saying, I'm going to rest, and realizing you can. And like when people say words like healing, it's not that it's done, like I'm healed. No, it's healing is like it's a journey. There's no destination. There's no end result. The healing shows when you're able to be like, no, I'm going to watch TV for 4 hours. I'm not getting up from here. I'm going to eat ice cream. I'm going to not care. Like, I'm not going to worry about anything else, and giving ourselves that time for rest, for ourselves, for us to recharge. And I think one of those things that we have, that I realize also, is that if you don't rest, your body's going to tell you. So paying attention to what your body tells you to do is very important. Hence why at work we have experienced that suffocation, that tightness. It's our nervous system responding. Because I absolutely love like spirituality, but I love to always tie it into science. And your body doesn't lie about what it tells you. And your nervous system tells you when something doesn't feel right. So it tells you, like, I would always joke around, like every time I would pull into the garage, I'm like, why do I get sick every time I pull into the garage? Is my body telling me, like, why can't I be in this building? It was telling me it was time to go. Like, it's time to get out of here. So we feel that in front of, in work, and when we meet certain people, or when we have certain people around us that don't make us feel good. So our body tells us that. So that healing process is also listening to what your body is telling you. Because otherwise, you probably be like, why am I sick for 3 days? I didn't do anything. But your body's like, no, you're not going to rest. I'm going to make you rest. Time.
It's so interesting you say that, because towards my last, I think, year in corporate, I was constantly getting sick. Like, I was literally calling out every month. I took a lot of trips to the emergency room because I would find, once it was something on my finger that appeared, I would break out in hives. I would have these massive headaches, and I couldn't understand where all of these things were coming from. And what I realized after the fact was that I was so overwhelmed, so burnt out, that it was starting to manifest physically.
Yes.
And clearly that was a sign that was telling me, girl, you no longer belong in this space.
Right.
You've already reached a point where it's starting to physically manifest in a way that you are becoming sicker. I mean, literally, like, yo amanecía, like, I would wake up one day with things on my body, and I'm like,
Oh my God.
where did that come
Yes.
from?
Yes.
Wow. So tell me, what is one strategy that women who might find themselves still unable to let go of their worth or value tied to an external, whether it's their job or relationship, like, what's one strategy that they can do to start shifting from that mindset to, it's okay for me not to be, 100% all the time.
Right. It's
productive.
Yes. I think one strategy is self-awareness, is kind of start asking yourself, what is exactly that you want? What is it that you want out of, and then those things, like out of work. And then the next question is why? Why do you want that? And I call it, you don't always have to go down 7 times, but I believe 7 times is a very good way of breaking it down of the why. Why did I want to be a VP? Why? Oh, because I make more money, and then, I could get recognized. Why do you need that recognition? It took me to be like, wait, why do I need them to value me? Or why do I need certain things? Why do I want a big house? Because I want to be around family. You could be around family in a small house. Like the why underneath the why underneath the why will bring you. Like, I want to have a gathering. Okay. Why? Because I want to host, because I like to host. Okay. But why? Because I like around family. Okay. But why? Because I like family. But why? So you kind of have to ask yourself these questions of, what is it exactly that you need and why? And you kind of get to the underlying reason of what you need for you. And another question you can also ask yourself is, who are you? And if I ask, who are you? I need you to give me things that are not title related, because that seems to be a tendency we all do. If you ask me, who am I? I'm going to give you my work title. I'm going to give you my mother title. I'm going to give you my wife title. Those are not who I am. Those are just my titles. So it needs to come on. Okay. So who are you outside of those titles?
Yeah.
We don't know. A lot of people tend to not know who they are outside of those titles. Hence, when one of those things you feel like you're failing at those things, you feel like you're failing as you, as a person, when it's not. So a good way is asking yourself who you are outside of every title you have. So I'm not a mother. I'm a nurturer, so, I'm not a transformational coach. I'm actually a healer, but I'm a healer because I needed to heal. So, and then it's the why. Why do you do the things you do? So you always and the why is helpful because it's you get to figure out like your ego versus who you are, like the things that feed the ego. And when you hear that, and I think, again, lately, a lot of these words have become like common buzzwords for people. Like, your ego is fed for survival, for you to survive. But we're not looking to do that. Survival was necessary as children because we didn't know any better. Now as an adult that we have the language and the mental capacity to understand better, now we don't need that. We need to thrive. So how do we thrive versus survival? The ego will always do things just for survival, just to get you to that state. So the survival mode would be, that's to feed my ego. To be a VP is because I want to say I'm a VP. I just want to say, like, I'm a VP. You know what I mean? But you're the CEO of your life. Like that, you're the top tier of the best part of your life. You know what I mean? That's who you are. And that's what you should, that's what your goal should be. You know, that's the best title. Yeah. And I feel like we missed the mark because of that. Because asking the why and also asking yourself, actually, who are you truly? And getting to the bottom of that. And then in any space you are, you're able to be that. I could be a nurturer anywhere. I could be a healer anywhere. So now your perspective has changed and your mindset has changed and you could thrive.
I love that. And actually, part of my CEO method, right, in terms of helping these women become the chief empowered officer, AKA the CEO of their life, cultivating your strong sense of self or identity or brand, right? Because I'm all about marketing and branding and strategy, what I went to school for. Part of that, the first question I like to ask is, who am I? Like, get women to answer that question in relation to the essence of who they are versus the many roles that they play. So whether they're a mom or a VP or a friend or a sister or a wife, it's like, who are you at the core?
Right.
And one of the things that I like to say is I'm courageous. I'm audacious. I'm bold. I am smart, right? Like I like to tie it to internal validations versus external, because that is essentially who I am at the core. And then that helps me, and I don't know if this is the same for you, Gihan, to like, whenever I'm in a funk or in a bad situation, I like to remind myself of who I am, because that helps me to shift out of whatever funky mood I'm in or circumstance or situation with someone. It's like going back to the core.
Right. Yes. That's great. I love it. Yes. I think that's very important. I think that, for myself, I like to call it like my theme. Like I pick a theme for the year and I do that. Like, remember who you are.
Yeah.
And then who am I? And it's like the version of me before I feel like anyone touched like my inner self. Like before I made an agreement with everybody, like, you know, I don't have stage fright anymore. I don't have like these things that I used to have, like I used to do this without a problem. You know how we are Dominican, the kids will put on a show for every holiday. I was ready. I was me. I was in the front row. I was the one with the dances up front. Like that was me. So one of those things, it's like, who was I before everybody started telling me not to do these things, So who was I? Like, remember who you are. Remember who you were created to be. Remember God was there before you. So if he was there before me, that means it was prepared. I'm ready to go. If he steps before me, then I'm good. I'm good to go. So having that fearlessness, fear is one of those things that, we always will have fear and we have to do it in spite of it. So what I say is that fear can be here. It won't have the main seat. Fear can just, be back there and I'll just do it. So being courageous, like you said. Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
Also, who am I before the world told me who I was? Right? Like,
yes. Yes.
I grew up in Washington Heights, Dominicana. And then I go into this world of corporate where all of a sudden you had to be, very primed and proper, and you couldn't curse or, like all of these things. And I'm like, I like to curse. I mean, literally the name of my podcast, but I also grew up watching sports and cursing up a storm and all of these things. Like that is part of who I am. And, the other day my mom is like, oh my God, you're a professional. Like, why do you have to curse so much? And I'm like, first of all, the fact that I curse does not take away the fact that I have a master's degree from NYU or a bachelor's
Absolutely.
from Baruch College. Okay.
Absolutely.
Like
Exactly.
that is what being a professional is that I actually have a degree that says that I am a professional.
You're an expert in your field, and it doesn't take away from your cursing. Like your cursing doesn't take away from that. Just like, again, like me looking at you right now with your beautiful curly hair. Like I love my curly hair, and I had to go through that transition as well of like my hair not being considered professional in the corporate setting. Now, like one of the things I do now is I sell homes. My card has my hair, my curly hair. I don't have like straight hair in my picture. That was a long process mentally that I had to think for myself to be like, do I put a picture with straight hair? Do I put a picture with curly hair? And that shouldn't be something I should think about. But I was like, no, that's who I am. Like that's my hair. Like, why would I not show it? That's my hair. And it hasn't hindered me at all. I still find my clients. It doesn't matter. It's one of those things that we definitely had to see that who you are doesn't take away from any of your intelligence. Like your cursing doesn't take away from your intelligence, or the way we look, the way we speak doesn't take away from any of that, you know? So I love it. I love that you're saying that. Yeah. Cause it's so true. Very true.
No. And that thing about hair, I remember, and you know this growing up in Dominican culture, like the girls that were considered beautiful, right, were the ones that were lighter skin with the straight long hair, their straight nose. So I even grew up thinking that I wasn't beautiful enough because I didn't look like everyone else. Right.
Exactly.
And then the fact you have the media and society telling us and showing us that this is the picture of beauty, that slim,
very fair skin. Yeah.
Anorexic looking chick. I'm just gonna sing it. Right? Like,
Right.
I feel like our beauty is from within and it transcends however we choose to look on the outside.
Right.
But yeah, that thing with hair in our culture is something big. Like I remember spending hours at the beauty salon doing the rolos and, blowing it out, getting it as straight as possible. Because I was trying to be that version of beauty that everybody deemed, beautiful.
Exactly. And it's something that like I had to wrestle with it because recently, the last year, I started like blowing out my hair again. But I was like, I need to ask myself, why am I doing it? And the reason why, like during the winter month, honestly, curling hair is expensive. People don't realize to have curly hair is very expensive. I know. I am fully aware. So to give my pockets a break, I tend to now, I'm like, all right, at least I can blow out my hair and it costs me this much and I can last these days. Or for time, because, to prepare our curly hair also takes time. But I absolutely am doing everything possible to maintain it and not lose it. But it's like you said, like now as an adult, I'm like, wow, we were really tricked into thinking we were not beautiful.
Yeah.
And now it's like the self-awareness version of us coming in and being like, I belong in that room exactly how I look. And I don't have to change a thing to belong in these rooms. And those women that look like that, they look like that. But that doesn't take away of my beauty at all. Yeah. And I'm still equally or more beautiful. Like I don't need to go to look like that. I don't need to look like that in order to be accepted or wanted or anything like that. So I definitely am one of those people that I think being of color, you and I, we're very hyper aware of what we see, like things being promoted and stuff like that. And the women don't look like us. And we're like, like at least for myself, I'm always hyper aware. Even when I see like conferences and things happening, I'm like, where is the darker skinned girl? Where is she? Why is she not there? I need someone darker to be represented. Like, why are we not there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we not the one being shown? It's always the more fair skin Latina or the fair skin Black girl, so these are things that we kind of have to wrestle with. And on top of that, tell ourselves, we also belong there. It's not going to take away. So if we're not there, we might have to create something for ourselves to be there. But yeah, definitely.
And that also comes from generational trauma, right? Like that has been handed down from generation to generation. And it has a lot to do with colonialism and how that played a part in our history. And we're not going to get into that. We'll probably need another show for that. But tell me, in terms of your healing process, in terms of breaking these generational curses, what has been the journey for you? Like, what have you learned about yourself?
Bringing back to obviously like what we were just speaking about is knowing my worth internally and not needing validation from anyone. Not putting, for a very long time, we tend to put other humans on pedestals and assuming that they will never do us wrong or anything like that. And knowing for a fact that that's not true because we're all human. We make mistakes. We can't put those expectations on anybody. So we can't expect them to be responsible for our worthiness and our esteem and our validation. So in my healing journey, I had to learn that about myself. Like, you have to validate yourself. But obviously my validation comes from a higher source. That's where, in my case, I believe in God. So for me, my validation comes from God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Like that's where it comes for me. And like you said earlier, whatever your source is, whatever your highest power, that's where your validation should come from. Know that you were created for greater purpose. Knowing you were created, for that reason. So for my healing journey, that process was that, like, understanding my worth outside of what everyone else said, like from within, and understanding what I was created for. And then the other part is understanding and unlearning the things that I learned from like parents, from my mother, and the understanding that her pain didn't have to become my pain. So understanding those things as well and trying to work through those generational traumas of these, but like we inherited some bad things, but we also inherited good things.
Yeah.
So trying to focus on what those good things were and then understanding and unlearning the things that were ingrained in us from childhood because of their limiting beliefs and trying to break those for myself and for future generations.
I love that. And you mentioned limiting beliefs. And for those that may not be aware, like these are judgments and perceptions that were created from a very young age, like our early childhood. So it's part of like the belief system, and it's a whole cycle. And, I think I might have to do a class on this because whatever beliefs or convictions we were taught such a young age, unless it serves to your higher good now, you should keep them. But if it doesn't, you should let them go. Like if there are certain beliefs that you grew up with that are no longer serving to your higher self, your higher purpose, then it's okay to let them go. And I always love to tell people, like, it's okay to let go of people, places, or things that no longer serve you.
Absolutely.
And because there's limiting beliefs that tends to hold us back from achieving some of our hopes, dreams, desires, because they've been ingrained in our psyche at such an early age that it is part of us. So one of the things that I'd like to remind my audience, and I don't know if you have a tip for this, is to really go back. If there's like, let me see, what's a limiting belief? Oh, well, we touched upon it, like not feeling worthy enough or beautiful enough or good enough. Those are limiting beliefs. I like to tell people to kind of go back as far as they can and figure out, where is that belief coming from? Is it something that you yourself believe to be true, or is it something that was told to you? And if it was something that was told to you, how can you start shifting your mindset to think otherwise, right? And finding the evidence that supports that new belief about yourself.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point on having them think about it, like where it come from. And sometimes it wasn't like a verbal teaching. It was like actions. So the actions that were taught of us growing up, and it could be things like you mentioned, like limiting belief about worthiness, but also our mindset, the scarcity of love or money. Like, like that's a huge one in the community because most of us came from families that didn't have much. And even the ones that did, they were very frugal and very specific on what they can spend and what they can't spend. And when that belief system carried on with us, and then we don't realize why we save things like aluminum foil or
I didn't think about that one.
why we save aluminum foil, oil, bags. We were recycling before recycling was a thing. Like that was, yeah, we were already, but the reason why we did it wasn't why the reason we weren't trying to save the earth. We were saving money. Like, that's the reason why we were doing it. And we were trying to be, smart with what we had. And those are things like that those limiting beliefs, like for me, one of those moments where knowing I had enough funds to buy something and not being able to hit like purchase. Like I literally would have to give my spouse my phone, like hit purchase. Like it hurts, please. Or I'll send him the link, like you buy it for me. Cause it hurt me. And then I was like, wait, this is one of those things I need to heal from. I need to heal from thinking that I'm not. Why don't I think I'm worth getting that? Like, why am I not worthy of paying for this if I do have the funds? Like, why? So it's one of those other layers that we have to work through. So definitely is one of those things like the actions of things. You're like, why do we do this? And asking yourself where it came from and where we learned it from. Like what actions our families did or we picked up along the way at a younger age and why we still do it. Yep.
I love that. And you talked about scarcity mindset and how it attributes to money and stuff. And I'm actually getting ready to launch my CEO Money Moves Bootcamp, which is all about elevating your money mindset, because a lot of times we are not making the type of money that we want or desire because we have these limiting beliefs that keep us from making the type of money that we want to earn.
Yes. Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So I love how you say that. So, and that is going to be taught inside the CEO Club, which is my community. And speaking of community, I know that you have mentioned how important community is in terms of our healing process. So can you share a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when you want to manifest things in your life, one of the things that I speak of is like the steps that are needed to manifest. And we've touched upon quite a few of them today. Like when it comes to breaking the limiting beliefs, those are like being self-aware. And the other one that I'm very big on, and I believe, is community. You need to surround yourself with people that are going to push you to the next level of what you're looking to be. The best version of yourself, you need to be around that. And the reason why is because if we consistently spend time around people that speak of us as the past selves, how are we going to be our future selves if they only speak on us of our past version? Remember what you did when you were 18, Martha? You remember what you did? Remember you used to party? Like, like that's not who I am. So why we bring it up? Let's talk about me as the CEO, me, a YouTuber, me, me with a whole club, a whole community that I built. Like you built a whole podcast. Like that's you. Like that's who you are. So let's discuss that, like your development of women and their growth. Those are the people that you should be surrounding yourself with. Not only for that reason, but community, what it does is it builds you when there are going to be days that you don't feel like yourself. And you need someone to remind you of who you are. So community works in the space of that. And it's not like you're going to go and search for just women that are millionaires. That's not what that means. But it means that you should find people that have similar mindsets, that are willing to grow and create goals with you and speak of those things. Because if we speak on a science level, we all literally operate from a specific frequency.
Yeah.
And that frequency is contagious. And if you have to audit your group of who you're around, if they're operating from a frequency of still, like, our bond is based on trauma and us always complaining, or our bond is always based on me not speaking right about people and only focusing on speaking ill on people, then you're operating from a lower frequency. So you need to find people that are going to speak life into you. Like, literally, like, it's biblical and it's in science, like the way you speak into people, you speak life into people. But if they're not speaking life into you, it's impossible for you to be able to reach that next level, because we weren't created to do life alone. We cannot thrive in isolation. So you absolutely need people to surround yourself with that are going to help you, pour into you just as much as you pour into them or into others. Otherwise, you're going to be running on empty. So absolutely, community is necessary.
I love that. And having a safe space, right, where you can actually have these conversations that you and I are having, which is so key to shifting from survival mode to thriving. Like, I want all of us to thrive in life. And I mean that not just from a career perspective, but in our relationships, with our finances, with our friends, with our spouses, right? Like, I want us to really own who we are authentically and unapologetic, so we can thrive and really serve on that high frequency that you mentioned. Because if we can all shift into a higher frequency, my God, how much better would this world be?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of those things is, like, that I always mention is on a spiritual, like, biblical level. Like, one of those stories that really captured me was the story of, like, an ill man that was picked up by his friends and taken to Jesus where he was preaching. And what ended up happening is that the place was too full. There was no way he was going to get in. So what they did is that the friends climbed the roof and tore a hole in the roof and dropped the friend in front of them. That man didn't ask to go there. That man did not ask for anything. He was just in his bed, like, dying, literally dying. And his friends did that. So what did Jesus did? He told them, because of their faith, you are healed. So they didn't even have, so there's going to be times that you don't have that in you. And you need that safe space of someone to be like, no, we're not going to let you die. We're going to raise you up. And that's what they did for him. And I feel like those are the type of friends that you need to find, or community that you need to build, so that they can raise you up in times when you don't feel like, and having that safe space to build with them and to feel comfortable to sometimes just cry or just to listen, or to hear, just an ear to listen, you know.
I love that. And I feel like we need to have this conversation inside the CEO club.
Yes.
Bringing
More
you
than,
your expertise.
Yes, absolutely. Anytime.
Listen, I love this. I feel like you are such a gem. You dropped so much wisdom. I feel like we need to have, like, a part 2, because I know that there's so many more generational traumas or things that we've been conditioned to believe that hold us back from, like, really tapping into our full potential. So we'll definitely have to schedule, like, a part 2. But before we go, I always like to ask my guests, like, what does it mean to be the CEO of your life and or business?
What does it mean to be the CEO of my life? It's actually knowing when the things I can control, and knowing when there's things that I need to surrender. Knowing that this life is not my own, that my job is to be a vessel and to share my gifts with everybody, because my gifts are attached to you and to others. So who am I to have the audacity to keep that in and not share? Because I know that me sharing my story is going to allow you to be and create who you are. So to be the CEO of my life is to know that I was put here to share my gift and to grow and to give, and allow that to grow somewhere else. And that would be my legacy.
I love that. All right. So what's one thing that makes you feel audacious, or that you've done that has been audacious as fuck?
one thing that I feel that makes me audacious is that speaking my truth. What makes me audacious is being like, just letting people know, like, I'm not perfect. I'm learning. I have the audacity to say that I'm learning just like everybody else. And I want you to know that none of us know what we're doing. We're kind of just trying to live life the best we can. And that it's okay. Like, I can't judge anyone beyond my seat. This is what I'm responsible for. And what makes me audacious is knowing that the message can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're capable of receiving it. It doesn't matter from who it's coming from. So take it.
I love that. And thank you for saying that, because I have an issue with claiming to be an expert, right? Like in our business, and you know this, like you have to be an expert on something. So prove your authority. And for me, it's like, I love to learn from other people. Like, I don't have all the answers.
Right.
Right. I'm not perfect. What I've been through may not be what other people have been through. So am I a thought leader? Yes, I am a thought leader in personal growth, personal development, because similar to Gihan, like, we care so much more about the individuality, like the individual itself, versus all these external things that people tend to glorify. But being an expert, it's such a hard title for me to hang on to, because similar to you, I'm a work in progress. I'm still learning.
Absolutely.
Evolving.
Yes. And anytime I know that the times I've spoken to you, or I look at the things you posted, it's been growth. Like, it's growth. So I don't expect the version of you I spoke to last year to be the same version of you that you are this year. So that's why I love that. That's who I want to learn from anyway. I want to learn from the transparent person, the honest person, the clear person. Those are the people that I want to go to, not the ones that it's performative. I need the authentic, real version. So I can be like, oh yeah, I did learn from her. Awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't something that was built based on a bunch of like, certifications, you know? So, and you're qualified by God. Can't get any better than that. You can't get any better than that.
Amen. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for being part of the show. I adore you. We'll make sure to, include your links in the show notes so people can connect with you. And you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you. Would love to.
Yes. And with that, I want to say, guys, I hope you took away some of the beautiful stories and wisdom that was shared in today's episode. If you find this episode helpful, please leave us a review on iTunes and make sure that you take a screenshot of our episode and share it with us on Instagram. You could tag me, M. Ramos Official. I'll make sure to include Gihan's handle as well. And with that, I want to say, guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening. And I will catch you guys on our next episode.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes and share the love with a friend or two. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, friend, so you don't miss an episode. And with that, until next time,